Rich. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Gopi Janabalaba Girivardhara Gopi Jana Malabha Girivardhara Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tera Manachare Yamuna Tera Manachare Jai Ranaman Uva Punyavihaure Jai Ranamadava Punyavihaure Gopijana Malaba Giribarun Ahure Gopijana Malaba Giribarun Ahure Yasudhanana Brajachana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajajananan Jana Jamuna Tera Banachade Yamuna Tera Banachade Jai Hurad Umadhava Kunjabi Khagode Jai Hurad Madhuva Kunjabi Hare Madhava Jabi Hare Jai Om Vishnupad Acharya also Teta Sitashi Shima His Divine Grace Abhaya Chalananda Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Jai Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Jai Namacharya Vidas Thakur Parem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jai Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopinath Sai Mukunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Kijai Vrindavan Kijai Maturidam Kijai Jagadasami Kijai Yamunamai Kijai Shimati Glasa Devi Kijai Samvita Bhakta Vrinda Kijai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Gaur all glories the assembled devotees, all glories the assembled devotees, all glories the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Nama Om Vishnupadaya, Krishna Prastaya Bhutle, Shimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani, Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharni, Nivashesha Shunyavadi, Paschacha Jaja Tarane. So, before we begin the Bhagavatam class, I want to mention that it is the commemoration of the appearance day of a great devotee, eternal associate of Lord Chaitanya, known as Jagadish Pandit. Now, Jagadish Pandit is considered, according to the Gora Ganadesh Deepika, to be one of the Naga Patnis. Naga Patnis means the snake wives. So what does that mean, snake wives? That means you have this Kaliya serpent who Krishna chastised, who was poisoning the Yamuna River. And basically, Kaliya's wives saved him from being killed. And they're called the Nagapatnis. In Fiji, we actually have deities of Nagapatnis and Kaliya. They're the main deities, the center deities in the Krishna Kaliya temple uh, in Lotoka, Fiji. So according to the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's a quote here: Jagadish Pandit is the savior of the world. He was a thunder cloud of Krishna Prema who rained showers of mercy upon everyone. So there's a lot of information in the biography, which I'm not going to read right now. According to Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his commentary, he lived in the village of Yeshwaragram in the district of Nadia, and he even gives the Chakha Doha railway station. And actually, Prabhupada was asked one time, why has all this explicit information about, railway stations and everything like that in the Chaitanya Charitamrita? You may think, the spiritual book. Prabhupada said that it's to establish the authenticity of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, to show that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was actually an historical person and it's not just hagiography. I don't know if any of you know what hagiography. Hagiography means that when you generally have a biography of a great personality, it's fluffed out by the biographers. Fluffed out means there's a lot of exaggeration. You add a lot of things to it. So Srila Prabhupada wanted to show that the Chaitanya Charitamrita and Chaitanya Bhagavat were not like that, were not hagiographies. They were actually accurate biographies of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In fact, uh, he sort of toned down all the ecstasy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So it's not that there's exaggeration there or what's called hyperbole. I mean, sometimes there is hyperbole in other biographies of uh, great personalities. Bhaktisaranta Saraswati Thakur commented on that in regard to certain biographies. He said, there's very little truth in some of the other biographies, not of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but some of the saints. He says, but the philosophy is right. And so, especially the Bhakti Ratnakara, he talked about in that particular regard. And that's the biographies of Narottama Das Thakur and Shaimananda Srinivasacharya. I mean, basically, the story is there, but a lot of it is hyperbole, which is a hagiography. But anyway, we read it for the philosophy, we read it for the bhavas and the rasas, the explanations like that. So Jagadish Pandit was ordered by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to preach in Jagannath Puri, and he brought a deity. He's from Lord Jagannath back to his birthplace, which is called Yashohara Gram. And in bringing that deity back, it's described that he used to carry the deity on a stick. In other words, the deity was actually hanging from the stick, I guess in a little bag or something like that. And that stick is still there today. And these deities are still being worshipped today. Another important point about, let's see, about Jagadish Pandit, that he had a brother named Haranya. Oh, yeah, it's a very interesting story. And according to the biographies, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on Ekadasi was crying out for some grains that were cooked in the house of Jagadish and Haranya. And basically, nobody knew that they were cooking grains for their deities. Of course, we do offer grains. We do offer grains to the deities because the deities don't have to fast on Ekadasi. The deities are not worried about, Krishna's not worried about accruing sinful activities or sinful reactions or something like that. So anyway, so nobody knew that they were offering, but Lord Chaitanya was crying out, I wanted those grains. And he was a little kid. When someone's 5 years old, you don't have to worry about following Ekadasi. Sometimes they say 8 to 80. I got a few more years for that one. So anyway, so famous, and they fed Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu grains. Actually, according to Chaitanya Bhagavat, he said, if you want me to live, then take me to the house of the two Brahmanas, Jagadish and Haranya. If I eat the entire offering to Vishnu made by these devotees, I shall be able to live. Otherwise, not. And so that was an interesting story. Anyway, so every year after Lord Chaitanya Sannyas, Haranya and Jagadish would go to Mayapur, would leave and go to Jagannath Puri to see Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and they also participated in Lord Nityananda's chip rice festival at Panihati. Okay, so now we'll go on to the Srimad Bhagavatam. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, the 10th canto, 41st chapter, text 30. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Dadi Akshatai Sota Patrai Shrag Gandhir Abhupayanahai Tav Anarchu Pramuditas Tatra Tatra Dvijataya Danyakshatai Soda Patrai Shraggandar Abhupayanai Havanarchu Pramuditas Tatra Tatra Dvijataya Danyakshatai Soda Patrai Shraggandar Abhupayanai Tavanarchu Prabhuditas Tatra Tatra Dvijatayoho Danyakshatai Sodapatrai Shraggandar Abhupayanai Tavanarchu Pramuditas Tatra Tatra Dvijatayaha Yes. Oh, okay. Dadi with yogurt. Akshatai, unbroken barley corns. Sa and Uda Patrai, with pots filled with water. Shak, with garlands. Gandhai, and fragrant substances. Abhupayanahai, and also with other items of worship. Tau, the two of them. Anarchu, worshipped. Pramuditaha, joyful. Tatra Tatra, in various places. Vijatayaha, brahmanas. Translation: Brahmanas standing along the way honor the two lords with presentations of yogurt, unbroken barley corns, pots full of water, garlands, fragrant substances such as sandalwood paste, and other items of worship. You can repeat. Brahman is standing along the way, honored the two lords with presentations of yogurt, unbroken barley corns, pots full of water, garlands, fragrant substances such as sandalwood paste, and other items of worship. Okay, and so there's no commentary by Srila Prabhupada's followers, but there is a commentary by Srila Jiva Goswami. How the women with special bhava respected Krishna with completely soft hearts has been described. It's the last verse. Now the actions of the brahmanas are described. They worship with the two with offerings like yogurt, full water pots, and other auspicious items like fruit, abhyut, pie, and I. Why were they not afraid of Kamsa? They were overjoyed. Pramudataha. That means very joyful. Mudita means joyful. Pramudita means extremely joyful. Just like when you have the word Nunam Pramata Kurate Vikarma by Lord Rishabhadeva, the pra means in front of Pramuda. In that particular case, means very crazy. Pramata, which is a different word than mudita, but pramata. But you have the prakriti rupena jayate. So anyway, that emphasizes extremely joyful. If they were just joyful, it'd be mudita, but pramudita. He is the Supreme Lord. In great joy, their fear disappeared. In other words, they were fearful before. Here, Vijatayaha means brahmanas, since they are described later. So, again, Yakshatai Sudapatrai Shragandharavhyupayanai Pavanarchu Pramuditas Tatra Dvija Tayaha. So, Om Megana Timranda Shagananjana Shlakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So, actually, I just thought I'd talk about Brahmins, since not too much else to talk about other than becoming extremely ecstatic. When you realize that Krishna, actually, before I talk about Brahmins, it just came to mind. Why do you become extremely ecstatic when you realize that Krishna is God? Because you understand you're being protected by him. There's God. Everything has a purpose. I remember before I joined the Krishna conscious movement, I mean, I knew there was a God, but I just didn't know what the purpose was. I had so many misconceptions about God. I was something like on the second canto of the Bhagavatam. Not that I was reading the second canto of the Bhagavatam, but I was meditating on the universal form, basically. And not in the same way, I wasn't so astute as to come up with the same descriptions that the second canto had, but still, looking at the sky and the stars in the air, that time things were much more natural than they are today. You could see the stars. So there weren't all the Elon Musk's satellites going in the sky. So anyway, and I just, wow, overwhelmed by God, but I didn't know the purpose, so life was just like, what's the purpose? What am I doing? Maybe I shouldn't do anything. Let me just whatever, become a vegetarian, be nice to people. So when I heard there was Krishna and Krishna was God and he was my best friend, Bhaktaram Jagatapasam Sarvalok Maheshwaram Suradam Sababhutam Getwa, Mam Shantim Richati. Krishna is my friend, he's my well-wisher, he's in my heart, he's in his holy name. Wow. Now I have a purpose in life, now I'm protected. And if something happens to me, that's just Krishna's will. So he loves me, etc., like that. So I can't say completely fearless. I was still afraid when I was stopped for a traffic violation. very fearful. So anyway, but here, this is one of the points. When you realize that God is there, you become fearless. Abhaya sattva samshuddhi, jnana yoga vyavastitahi. That's a Bhagavatam's description that abhaya, one becomes fearless, uh, abhaya sattva samshuddhi, and established in mode of goodness, because one is cultivating, one has the knowledge, right? And one has the faith. It's not just knowledge, but one has faith. And there's a lot of things that augment our faith. It's not only like Shastric knowledge, uh, just even when I read some of the analyses by my godbrother Sadaputta, who passed away a number of years ago, about his analysis that according to the laws of probability, uh, things did not come about by chance. There is a creator. That increased my faith and my fearlessness too. A lot of things increase the faith. Of course, association with Prabhupada, uh, my own whatever paltry realization I have from chanting the holy name and observation of what happens in this material world. All these things increase my faith. So anyway, so that way we can become fearless. So here I want to talk about Brahmins, which are described as Dvija. The word Dvija is a very interesting word. It means to be born twice or twice born. And in one context, we also find that Brahmin, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, all three castes, are twice born. But in this particular context, Dvija simply means Brahmanas. And in another context, Dvija means birds, because birds are twice born. Actually, there are other animals that are twice born. Lizards are also twice born. They lay eggs. And I think cockroaches are also twice born. Isn't it? We're fighting our cockroach friends. So, so they're twice born because, why they're twice born? Because their second birth is actually a Brahminical birth. The first birth, according to the Vedic literatures, is a Shudra birth, no matter how cute your little kid is. Sorry about that, parents. Isn't it? Janmana Jayate Shudra. Samskarad Bhavat No matter how cute you think your kid is, and every time he says Papa, he's actually saying Prabhupada. We've seen that with parents. My child said Prabhupada. No, he said boo boo. So still, Janmana Jayate Shudra. Of course, if he was a devotee in his past life, I understand that he's carrying his devotional consciousness from one lifetime into another, like Kunta Kid and everything like that. So, but Janmana Jayate Shudra. Samskara Bhavet Dvijam. One becomes Dvija with his second birth. Second birth means basically initiation or samskara. To be more precise, it's a samskara. Actually, samskara can be perfect performance or perfect activity, isn't it? But it literally, in that context, the word samsara, like with samskara, not samsara. Samsara is a different. Samsara means perfect revolving in the birth cycle of birth and death. So samskara, in the context that we usually use it in, means like a reformatory practice. Reformatory means to reform your subtle body. Like our subtle body, that is the soul accompanied by the subtle body, or the subtle body of the soul, has undergone so many different experiences in this material world. And we have some really demoniac samskaras. Samskara impression. Also, Prabhupada also sometimes defines the word samskara as impression. In a sense. So we have these samskaras. Sometimes you'll see a devotee criticizing another devotee. Not that we should do this. He has really bad samskaras. phew, that means bad impressions on the subtle body. And it's true. And as soon as we stop chanting, then Punar Mushika Bhava, according to Srila Prabhupada, as soon as we stop following the regulated practices and chanting, then our previous samskaras come out again. And just like the story in the Bhagavatam about Roma Harshana Sutta, of course, not that he stopped chanting, but he committed an offense. Now, he was called Roma Harshana Sutta because he was born from a mixed family. His mother was Brahmin and his father was lower caste. And so, because he was born in a mixed family, but still because he had spiritual knowledge, he was not considered according to his caste. Because he was manifesting the qualities, like a Brahmin is known, what is it? Chaturvarna Maya Shishtat Guna Karma Vibhakasha. A Brahmin is known according to his qualities, or any one of, or any member of the Varnashram system is known according to their qualities. Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. Brahmin, of course, is Samadhamma Kapakshocham. I'm not going to go to the whole description. He's equipoised, fearless. That's a real Brahmin because a Brahmin knows Brahman. Once you know Brahman, you're going to be fearless, right? That's the definition of Brahman. So anyway, and a Kshatriya is heroic and likes to protect people. It's not that he simply likes to fight. Like some parents, they have children who like to fight, and they think my child must be a Kshatriya. He may be a Shudra. So, and Vaishya, he loves money. He wants more and more and more and more and more money. Can become a banker like that. And then a Shudra, he likes to work with his hands. So anyway, getting back to Roma Harshana Sutta, so Roma Harshana Sutta was considered a Brahmin because he was exhibiting Brahminical qualities. Yet as soon as he committed that offense, I don't know if it's called a mad elephant offense, it's a mad whatever offense against Lord Balaram. And it wasn't that he started criticizing Lord Balaram or anything like that. He just didn't recognize that Lord Balaram was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You may think, oh, that's a innocent offense. You hear about all these like really mild things that people do, and then wow, what a reaction. Like you hear about King Riga. What did he do? Just by accident, the cow was given away twice, right? And he becomes a lizard. I mean, what to speak of me? I've probably done millions of things worse, billions of times worse than King Riga did. God knows what's going to happen to me. So, but there's actually a reason behind that. And of course, in the case of King Riga, it was because King Riga really was just involved in ritualistic activities. And Krishna was rectifying his consciousness. Sometimes there's tough love like that. It wasn't like just punishment for the sake of punishment. Oh my God, you become a lizard. I'd be a lizard for 10 billion births. But Krishna does what's best. And that way you're fearless. Even reading Prabhupada's description that if the GBC makes a mistake, gets to take birth in a Shudra family, next life, like Vidura did. So we're fearless. I mean, whatever it is, whatever situation Krishna puts in, it's for our benefit. So anyway, getting back to Roma Harshana Sutta, Roma Harshana Sutta was killed by Balaram. And because Balaram, at that point, recognized that he wasn't qualified. And you remembered his birth. You understand? That was the point I was making. You remember his birth, you remember his actual qualities, with not recognizing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Whereas Roma Harshana Sutta's son, who's known as Sutta Goswami, he did understand those things. So here he was, the son of someone who was killed by Balaram, and then he was recognized as the greatest Vaishnava. And he had previously attended the recitation of the Srimad Bhagavatam that Shukadeva Goswami. And anyway, the sages accepted him as a real Brahmin. So this is actually very, very important to understand that, Brahman is according to their qualities. And even there's that interesting story uh, from the Vedic literatures about the Satyakama person. Satyakama was not only considered to be a Shudra according to his birth, but basically it wasn't even known what his Varna was. He was almost like an outcast because Satyakama's uh, father was unknown. He just wasn't known. So what happened is that his mother's name was Jabala. Nice name, Jabala. But anyway, his mother's name was Jabala, and he was a Brahmin by nature, so he wanted to take initiation from Gautama Rishi. And Gautama Rishi wanted to just have Brahmin disciples. So he actually tested each person who came to him for initiation or for training. He didn't just accept their birth. And you can contrast that with Dronacharya, right? Dronacharya was approached by Karna, right? And Karna wanted to get training by Dronacharya. And so Karna, because Karna was known that he was, even though he was a Kshatriya, but it was generally known that he was the child of a chariot driver, which is like a Shudra. So Dronacharya actually refused, even though Karna, it's interesting, isn't it? Even though Karna had the qualities of a Brahmin, not Brahmin, sorry, Kshatriya. Got it wrong. Karna had the qualities of a Kshatriya. Dronacharya didn't test him. He just considered the birth to be important. Whereas Gautama Rishi, he used to test his prospective disciples to see what their qualities were. So basically, the story is, the Vedic literatures, that he asked Satyakama, what is your Varna? And Satyakama said, I don't know. So who's your father? I don't know. And then Gautama Rishi said, ask your mother. So he goes back to his mother and says, Jabala, not Jabala, Mataji. So, because in the Vedic system, they wouldn't call the mother by her name. The child would actually call the mother Mataji or Shri Mataji, whatever. And who is my father? And she says, I don't know. Could have been any one of a number of people. And so he goes back to Gautama Rishi, and he says to her, my mother doesn't know. It could have been a number of men. And Gautama Rishi says, what? You're a Brahmin. Because a Brahmin is always telling the truth, whereas others are not often telling the truth for a variety of reasons. I was asked this question in my class last night. It was really interesting. Why do we find so much lying, people covering up when they should not cover up? That was in the class. It was interesting. And there's a variety of reasons, but it's generally fear. It's generally fear about what will happen. And in many cases, in certain societies, it's fear because when people were young, they were chastised even for telling the truth. Did you do it? And they say, I'm sorry, I did it. Then instead of like in certain cultures, like in America, the culture I was brought up in, my mother would say, okay, you told the truth. And we admire you for that, but don't do whatever you did again. But in other cultures, if you're discovered at having done something, then you lie. You lie to sort of keep yourself from being chastised. and you develop this habit because of fear. You develop this habit because of fear of lying continually in practically every circumstance that you think you're going to get in trouble for telling the truth. I mean, even to such an extent that I was mentioning last night, sometimes in India, and when you ask people for directions, they'll give you the wrong directions. Instead of saying, I just don't know. Because they're, that ingrained fear of past trauma is there. So anyway, so a Brahmana is fearless. And I want to talk about what fear is, because this is really interesting. Some quotes from Prabhupada. Fear is due to worrying about the future, what may happen. If one's Krishna conscious, whatever happens, if I die, sometimes people are really afraid of facing the truth that you're going to die very soon. I mean, I have one disciple, doesn't matter where he is, but he's in the hospital right now. And it's obvious that he's going to die within a very, very short time. And he keeps writing me. He says, let me just leave here. The doctors won't let me leave. Of course, he's in such a condition that he can't leave, because if he left, he went home, he would die immediately. So he said, they're just making up all these, in other words, they're making up all these different diseases they think I have. And actually, anyway, he's in a very difficult situation. So he just won't face the truth. But fear is due to worrying about the future. If one knows that Krishna is in charge, of course, the surrendering principles, Krishna is always protecting me, Krishna is always maintaining me, then you'll be fearless like that. So fear is due to worrying about the future problems. A person in Krishna consciousness has no fear because his activities, he is sure to go back to the spiritual sky. So let's say, I mean, this would be a test. I don't want to go through this test right now, but anyway, let's say someone say you're going to die today. Like you have Maharaj Kadvanga, for example, isn't it? Kadvanga was what? Fighting for the demigods. And the demigod said, what benediction would you like? Not like me. If the demigods offered me a benediction, I'd have a long list for them. And he's just simply said, what? Tell me when I'm going to die. We're interested in that. Sometimes we go to the astrologers. I went to astrologers sometimes. He said, tell me when I'm going to die. He says, when you're about 55. And so I was just like, oh my God, 55. Never happened. So what happened with Maharaj Kadvanga, they said, you're going to die, in an instant, pretty quick. And what did he do? Came back to the Earth planet, because the Earth planet is a pretty good place for surrendering to Krishna, where you don't have so much opulence. Surrendered to Krishna, went back to Godhead. Of course, Parikshit Maharaj is the typical example that people use in this regard. That he wasn't, when he was informed, you're going to die in 7 days by the snake bird. He didn't take any precautions. He just gave up everything. He wasn't even thinking, not even about himself, but he wasn't even thinking, what's going to happen with my poor wife and children and everything like that. You find people on their deathbed, they're very much afraid. And they're just like, how will they live without me? Yeah, actually, in this one case, the disciple, he's thinking, how will they live without me? But, of course, adequate arrangement should be made. Like Prabhupada did make some arrangement, but it's not like fearful. He's back, sure to go back home, back Godhead. Therefore, his future is very bright. Others, however, do not know what their future holds. They have no knowledge. So if you don't have knowledge, like these brahmanas in this story had knowledge of what the next life holds, therefore they're in constant anxiety. If we want to get free from anxiety, here's the clue. Then the best course is to understand Krishna and be situated always in Krishna consciousness. In that way, we will be free from all fear. It is stated in the Bhagavatam, a famous verse, 11th canto, second chapter, 37th verse, Vayam duta viniveshata shat. Fear is caused by our absorption in the illusory energy. But those who are free from the illusory energy, those who are confident they are not the material body, but they are spiritual parts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and who were therefore engaged in the transcendental service of the Supreme Lord, have nothing to fear. We don't have time. I have a lot more about fear. So this is very, very important. You know, we understand Krishna's maintaining us, Krishna's protecting us. And, you know, things are going to happen with the body, things are going to happen with the mind, things are going to happen with the material world, things are going to happen in the world in general. There's going to be wars or pestilence or whatever, global warming, global cooling. We have Krishna. And that's why the Brahmanas were fearless. Okay. Thank you very much. All glory.
Govindam Adipurusham Namaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Namaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Namaham Bhajami Enam Kanvandam Maravindadalaya Tapsam Varhavatam Samasitam Buddhasundaranam Nandar Akom Vigamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govindam Adipurusham Namaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Namaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Namaham Bhajami Angani Asa Sakale Priya Priti Manti Vasyanti Panti Kayanti Chiranaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Dala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurusham Namaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Namaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Namaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Namaham
Namaham Bhajami Namo Vishnu Pataya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Sri Mate Bhakti Vedanta Samanichi Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Puravani Pacha Vinay Devasesha Shunyavagade Vasachagade Sacharinay Puravani Pacha Vinay Devasesha Shunyavagade Vasachagade Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Ramunica Nana Sri Advaita Gadada Siva Sadi Gurma Vrinda Sri Advaita Gadada Siva Sati Gurma Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadada Siva Sati Gurma Vrinda Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadada Siva Sati Gaurabhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Hare Hare, Adi Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Adi Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Hare, Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya, Radha Hare, Govinda Jaya Jaya. Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya, Radha Hare, Govinda Jaya Jaya. Radha Kunukanana Radha Kunukanana Radha. Jaya Radha Kunukanana Radha Kunukanana Radha. Jaya Radhe 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 Jai Om Vishnupad.
Rayakarai Chandrika Vitarana.
Swaranam Sarvatma. Etadrishita Vigraram Bhagavan Mamapi Durdaiva Midrishami Hajjanina Raga Trinada Pi Sunichena Tarora Pi Sahishuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Nadaram Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Va Jagadisha Kamaye Mama Janmani Janmani Ishvare Bhavatad Bhakti Rohitaki Twai Ainanda Tanrija Kinkaram Patitamam Vishame Bhavam Buddha Kripaya Padab Tavakancha Stita Duli Sadrashim Pachintaya Nayanam Galadu Shradaya Varanam Gadgada Hridaya Gira Pulaga Nishitam Vapugada Tavanamagrahane Bhavishyati Yuga Yatam Namishena Chakshusha Bhavashayatam Shunayatam Jagat Sarvam Govindam Virahename Ashlisha Vapadam Ritam Padastumam Adarshanam Marma Hatakarotuva Yatatata Vabanatolam Padomat Prananatastusha Evanapara. Victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the ears and extinct. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, congregational chanting of your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than a straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. Oh, my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up? And when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so even if he handles me roughly by his embrace or makes me brokenhearted by not being present before me.